Good morning once again. Welcome to Experiencing God Through the Seasons of Life. Our topic this morning is borrow not a few. You remember we are moving with the story from the book of 2 Kings chapter 4 verses 1 through 7. Yesterday we explored verse 2, today we are on verse 3. It reads, "Then he said, Go borrow thee vessels abroad of all thy neighbors, even empty vessels, borrow not a few." May the Lord add a blessing to the reading of his word. There are about four or so lessons that I harvested from this passage. Yesterday, the prophet asked her, "What do you have in your house? What can I do for you?" And today he is giving her a solution to say, go borrow vessels from people abroad and borrow from all thy neighbors. So the instruction was there, go. And what she was going to do was to borrow. Remember, what had put them in debt or what had left them in debt was borrowing. And the same situation that had lent them in a situation is the same action that she's being asked to do, to go borrow from her neighbors. I want to try and imagine this woman. She was now going to borrow vessels. And if we look at life, there are things that once you realize you don't have, you need to go and borrow. You need to go borrow vessels. Is it education that you don't have? If you have been widowed, you need maybe, if you are young enough, you need to go and borrow education. You need to go and get some education. What is it that you don't have and that you can go borrow? Is it wisdom from another person? Is it something that another person is doing so well that you can also learn from? Go borrow, and go borrow these vessels, because you will now need them. You know, when we lose our husbands, most times I've seen widows who have lost the source of income. You lose that, and now you are now the breadwinner. You need to man up or to woman up, I don't know, and you need to go borrow. You need to go borrow ideas. You need to go borrow whatever it is that you don't have. The second instruction was from all your neighbors. Who is your neighbor? Who are your neighbors? How do you live with your neighbors? Are you in good books with your neighbors? And I'm also saying to those who still have their spouses, your neighbors are your first relatives. When disaster strikes, those are the nearest people who come before your relatives come. You need to live with your neighbors well. Just a good morning, how are you? And even in this situation, who are your neighbors? So she was told to go borrow from all her neighbors. There was this one time when I didn't know that my neighbor was someone that needed something from me. Always when we look at our neighbors, we think there are people who need something from us, but lo and behold, I needed something from this woman that I could not have without her help. I was taking my mother to a hospital that was out of town. My mother was going blind, she had diabetes, and this particular hospital only attended to people on particular days. So I took my mother there, and as I was nearing that hospital, there was a woman who was flagging my car down. I told my mother, I just mumbled something to my mother, and I didn't want to give her a lift. Not because I didn't want, but because we were late, and I also wanted to be on time to get into the queues. And my mother just said something, "Why don't you give her a lift? Maybe transport is a challenge this side of town." And I obliged, picked this lady. We went to the hospital. Lo and behold, there were a lot of people. It was packed, and I was worried if we were ever going to see the doctor. This woman, when she was getting off the car, politely said, "Thank you." And then she said to me, "I can help your mom. Can I have a card so that she can be attended ahead of the others? Thank you for helping me. I work in the admin. Actually, all these people are waiting for me. Can I help you?" If I had ignored this woman, most probably I would not have been attended to. But because I helped her, she then helped me in turn to get attended to at this hospital. Who is your neighbor? How do you live with your neighbors? The other lesson that I got was she needed to go and borrow empty vessels. As a widow, you are the first empty vessel. As a woman, as a human being, you are the first empty vessel. You need to see that you have brought yourself, as she was going to borrow the vessels. This was work, and she needed to also work on herself. Work on yourself. You are the first empty vessel. And the prophet said, borrow not a few. You know, it's better to have ideas and not need them than to need them and not have them. She was told, go borrow not a few. And I'm saying this morning, as you are looking at your life, what is it that you need to go and borrow? Which ideas, where do you go to borrow? Who are your neighbors? If you are going to borrow, do not borrow small, borrow big, because you never know what you are going to need. Is it a skill on mushroom growing? Go and learn. Is it a skill on making soap? Go and learn. Is it an entrepreneurial skill? Go and learn. You never know when you are going to need it. For when you need it, God will make use of it. May the Lord bless you as you focus on borrowing what you don't have.